Welcome to My Therapist is Out, an open space therapy collective podcast. We are your hub for queer and trans mental health care. Each episode, we talk with one of our open space therapists or LGBTQ community member about mental health and building community. I am your host, Renae Johnson, they, them. Founder of Open Space Therapy Collective, I'm a licensed therapist and an art therapist. I specialize in working with queer artists who are exploring their gender identity and recovering from complex trauma. This week, we are talking with Kristen Crowe, she, they. Kristen is a licensed therapist, dance movement therapist, and clinical supervisor with Open Space Therapy Collective. Kristen specializes in working somatically with adults and partners to help heal the mind-body connection so you can feel more grounded and vibrant every day.
As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening.
Hey, we have a really interesting podcast today. This is one that I had a lot of questions about because it's not my area of expertise. So I was really excited that our OSTC therapist, Kristen Crowe, and clinical director came back to talk with us about pain during sex and what that means and how it relates to your mental health and your emotional safety in relationships, and how pain during sex can be a somatic expression of something else that's going on. I do want to highlight, please, if this is something you're experiencing, please go to your medical professional. This is not a one-for-one, that mental health things and pain during sex are always linked. This can be very much a medical issue, and so we want to be really sure to highlight, please, if you're experiencing any type of pain, just period, but especially about our topic today, please go see a medical professional. Kristen and I dive into something that they see a lot in practice. As a sex therapist, Kristen really is an expert in this area of how our body and sexuality responds, how our mental health is intrinsically linked to it in a variety of ways, which I'm sure is obvious to everybody who's listening. And I learned a lot from this episode. So if this was interesting to you, if you want to hear more about topics like this from Kristen, please send us a message. You can do so, comment below. You can find us at our website, openspacetherapycollective.com, and of course on social media at openspacetherapycollective.com. Let's get into it. Welcome to My Therapist is Out, an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. We have our clinical director back with us today again, Kristen Crowe. So good to see you.
Hi, good to see you.
Today we're going to talk about pain during sex, which I'm really interested to dive into. We have some really good questions to ask. And I bet people are wondering why this is even a topic in a therapy podcast.
Because it comes up in sessions all the time, and sex is such an important part of like being a human, and we all deserve to feel pleasure and good things in our body, and that's an important part. But like, it's also so taboo to talk about with your friends, so sometimes we talk about it in therapy, and I want to normalize that.
Yes. And this is coming, well, not directly off the heels, but the last couple episodes that we've had you on for, we've been talking about sex. And so I think this is a good kind of partner to those other episodes too, because we talked about like making sure to talk about it in therapy and finding a therapist that can talk about it. So under the assumption that you've done all of that already, what is it about pain during sex that has anything to do with psychotherapy?
Because it can cause a lot of distress for folks, right? Like there's a whole lot of stigma about like, it's supposed to feel good. It's supposed to be this. I'm supposed to feel this, and I should do this. I should feel that. And when you don't, then you feel different and ostracized and like you're not normal. And that can cause rifts between you and your partners. It can cause stuff for you. And so I think it's an important thing to be able to talk about and kind of explore different reasons why that might be happening.
Yeah, which, and we'll get into this, which is a really important part, right? Like in any part of our relationships, it affects how we are, it affects how we are able to be in a relationship. And especially like you're saying, sexuality is such a big part of that, and engaging in sex is such a big part of that. When something goes sideways, it also affects our relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
For this episode, we're going to talk a lot about kind of anatomy and stay more out of gender identity attached to anatomy. So for people who have vaginas versus people who have penises, how does pain show up differently for them?
I think, how does it show up differently?
How do they experience pain differently? So different body, different mechanisms, different somatic experiences.
Yeah, I guess I do not own a penis, so I can't experience that. But it can show up just like during arousal, like the ways that your anatomy actually turns on in that way. It can show up partially through like an experience of some kind. It can show up through touch. It could show up through not through touch. Like all of the options are on the table for how and when that can happen. And I think it's going to vary a lot from person to person too.
Yeah. I've had clients that have experienced very like deep internal pains, and some are more superficial, like skin or just below the skin pains. Some of it is at certain points during a sexual encounter, like early on, and sometimes it's later, and it's kind of all over the map. And so there's no one, this happens and then pain happens.
Right.
There are some, and I do want to say Kristen and I are not medical professionals.
Absolutely not.
Please go to the doctor if you are experiencing any type of pain of any kind, whether it's during sex or you stub your toe. But there's also a lot of psychosomatic reasons why this can present. And I'm wondering if you can name a couple of those before we dive into some of the questions.
I mean, like medical terms aside, but like there are reasons that trauma could cause this. There are reasons that anxiety could cause this. There are, again, not medical, but even the like position that you're in, and then that could lead to like, I don't want to try anything, or like that causes so much anxiety that all the positions become. Yeah, I don't want to start naming actual things because that is not really my
Yeah, but I think that's a great entry. And like even anxiety, right? Like if we are experiencing anxiety, period, our body tends to tense up. We are much more reactive to anything that's happening around us. And so that also is going to happen during sex. Like your body's going to be, oh my God, something's going to go wrong. Oh my God, it's going wrong, and tense up. And then it's not going to be in that relaxed state. And so that can cause some negative, painful effects.
Yeah, like even if you think about it in a more like less sexual way, like if you get a massage and you are really tense, like how much more does that hurt? Like when somebody just touches you, right? And so that happens in all the regions of your body.
Yeah, that's a great example. Can you talk about trauma a little bit, especially if somebody's experienced sexual trauma of any point, how that can show up? Because that's very layered, and it's one of the sad things about sexual trauma is it really can ruin and damper your own sexual life, and whether that's with yourself or somebody else, in really difficult ways, and pain can be one of those.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to just even that like tensing up, right? It's that protective factor of like it's happening again. If you experience any sort of flashback or just reliving the experience, like your body remembers these things, and it can show up during penetrative sex, or it can show up during like even just foreplay and the stuff before that. And penetrative can be any sort of penetration, right? So like it's your body is protecting you. It thinks it's protecting you, even if you are excited and engaged in this experience. Like, it can't always tell the difference. It associates the arousal with scary.
Yeah. We talk a lot about, or when I'm with clients, I talk a lot about how excitement and fear are emotions that, like, in your body are very close together.
Yep. Bump up.
And this is a great example of how that can kind of vacillate between the two, and your body's having a hard time identifying which feeling you're having, or if you're having both or neither.
Yeah. And there's also the piece of, like, brain associates sex stuff with sex stuff, regardless if it's the good kind or the not good kind, right? And so, like, your arousal system will kick in even, like, during a trauma or assault, and that's not because you like it. It's because, like, it's related to sex, and that's, like, heavy air quotes, and that's just what your body is trained to respond to. So you can have, like, the feedback loop of, like, this is bad and I shouldn't be doing this, and anytime your body experiences the arousal, that can come back into play. And
Okay, so we got some good questions in. I'm just going to read them and we'll kind of riff.
okay.
There is a lot of other reasons and things going on that can cause this, so we're just going to scratch the surface on this. So if this is something you're experiencing, please talk to your therapist, talk to your doctor. There can be a lot of different things going on. How many more times am I going to say that?
I think it's really important to normalize, though.
Totally.
Right? Like, it's not just one thing, right? Like, there could be a lot of options, and I want people to also realize it's, like, to be patient with yourself, and it might not just be the one thing. Like, there are different things that you can explore, so don't give up just because one person tells you it's not this thing.
Yeah. Especially if you get a misinformed doctor who says, oh, I don't see anything, it's all in your head. Like, go get a second opinion.
Or a third or a fourth.
Yes, or 5 million. Yeah. So, I'm wondering if there's something wrong with me. I feel like I'm attracted to people, but after painful sexual experiences, it makes me wonder if sex is for me. Thoughts?
I feel like sex can still be for you, but we have some things that we can explore and play around with, right? There could be a variety of reasons that sex was painful. It could be you moved too fast through the arousal system and decided, like, penetration was happening now, whether or not your arousal system was ready. It could be because that position is not for you and your anatomy does not support that. It could be anxiety and being tense. It could be a medical thing. Like, you experiencing attraction doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be painful all the time. Like, let's talk about it. Let's explore, like, what's happening in those moments. Is it painful all the time? And, like,
yeah. And it's really common to, like, start being less aroused when you're seeing people that you would normally be attracted to, because attraction is now being associated with pain. And so that can start getting to shut down. That doesn't mean you're not attracted to people.
absolutely.
I had a second thought and I lost it. Shit.
It'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come back. There's also, like, there's more than penetrative sex.
So much more.
Like, that is, if that's what's causing the pain, you can have hours and days and weeks long of other sexual experiences that do not include that will help you stay aroused and attracted and engaged.
1,000,000%.
I feel like our queer audience knows that, but
Just in case,
Yeah.
let's say that.
yeah.
Let's say that we know that too.
Okay. I often experience pain during penetrative sex. I can't help but feeling like I'm letting my partner down, but I just have to stop sometimes. How do you think they should talk about it with their partner, and how do you think they should self-talk?
I think, well, let's make the assumption that partner is supportive.
Yes.
Let's just blanket make that the assumption. Then I think that there should be a lot of like exploration involved, right? Like if the penetrative part is the painful part, then what other things can we explore? Like, again, was it too soon? Was it because overstimulation is a thing, right? Like, how are we communicating that, and what else can we do to get that? If we're seeking the release, then how else can we achieve that? Mm-hmm. Self-talk is also the like, all of this can be normal, right? Like anything that you have to do around this can be normal. If there's something medically wrong, again, talk to an informed doctor, please. But yeah, like just, you're not broken. Mm-hmm. Like there are options. Mm-hmm. We can find them.
Mm-hmm. There's also, I'm going to make an assumption here, but it sounds like this person also thinks that once you engage with sex, you're just building up to penetration and faster and harder and orgasm. And that...
Such a heteronormative assumption.
Like, edging is fantastic.
Yes.
And if you need to take a break, whether it's you're tired or something hurts or whatever, you can still tease and edge and play
forever. Yeah,
while you see if you want to re-engage with penetration again or whatever it was that was causing you pain, if that's calmed down or not.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So many things. Sex is so many things.
Can you talk a little bit about the arousal system and what doing something too soon might mean?
Yes. Very like layman's terms, yes.
Please. That is what we do here.
Okay, great. Yeah, so like your system needs time to legitimately rearrange things. For like vagina owners, your organs actually move out of the way to make room for something to enter, right? And so if you do that too soon, then your organs are still in the way and they're getting poked or something else, like, and that can be really painful. For penis owners, like, also the same, like, blood is moving in different ways and it's like your skin is stretching, like all sorts of other things are moving, right? And so what was the question? Doing that too soon?
Yeah.
Right? Like your body's not ready. Mm-hmm. It's like this is a stupid analogy, but it's like warming up a car when it's snowing outside. Right? Like you can't just go. Like it needs to be warmed up because it just has to. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in Southern California. That's not a thing, and I've lived here my whole life. But I assume.
I mean, you know, Big Bear's right there.
Sure. I don't go there when it snows.
Yeah.
But
it's a great analogy.
Same idea, right? Like you need to be warmed up to do the thing. Okay, how about if you exercise? Mm-hmm. Right? Like if you exercise, you're not just going to go pick up a super heavy weight super cold off the street. Like you will hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. Right? Like your body needs to warm up. And that's the same thing with the arousal system. It needs time to warm up and be ready for the things.
Yeah, and a lot of media skips that part.
So much.
And so whether it's, you know, a regular movie or porn or anything else, it's just like, ooh, you're cute, and then everybody's doing all the stuff.
Yep. No.
But that's not how bodies work.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 3. Why, after years of having sex in the same exciting ways, has it turned painful recently? Is something wrong?
I think if it's been working and nothing else has changed, I would seek a medical opinion just in case, right? Like if these are, like this said, same exciting ways, right? Like I would get it checked out just in case. Mm-hmm. But also if that's not the case, then let's talk about what else has changed in your environment and in your relationship, in your whatever, your daily stressors. But that's what I would.
Yeah, especially, you know, if as we get older, things change
shift
and move. And there are different specialists that can help assess and let you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, it doesn't have to just be like you're mad at your partner and so your body shut down. It can also be whatever else is going on in your life.
Yes. Stressors are a huge thing, right? Like they can make your arousal system not interested in turning on at all. So just kind of looking at all of this holistically, right? Like your experiences get brought into your sexual experiences. So let's look at the whole picture.
I also wonder, they're not alluding to this, but like if it's the same, like how much sexual exploration is this person continuing to do? Or are they in kind of this pattern of doing the same thing all of the time? And maybe there's an opportunity to explore, maybe the same thing isn't what my body actually wants. Maybe they want something else.
Sure. Yeah. And, like you said, things shift. So if we need to explore some new things, that could be really fun and exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be same exciting. Can be new exciting.
Mm-hmm. Especially if somebody's on HRT, your body's going to do a lot of changing. And so, yeah, like not just in the beginning, but like your whole process through it. And so what makes you excited at what your body likes and responds to is going to continue to change.
Yes. Or if you've had gender affirming surgeries, like things have literally been moved and shifted around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that might be a completely different thing to explore.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, we've got two more. Sex has always been painful for me, and I'm coming to the realization that this isn't normal, or maybe it's normal for me, but it shouldn't be.
I really hate the word should when we talk about
Mm-hmm.
sex. Sorry,
Yes.
no soapboxing, right? Okay.
But I don't know about you. I get clients that say something similar a lot.
All the time.
And just like, oh, I'm like, it will often start as like, oh, sex isn't that important to me. And then on exploration, it's like, oh, it's not important because it's painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As we're talking about this, I'm also curious where it's painful for this person.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, this is going to be kind of silly, but if you tend to get headaches a lot after orgasming or being really stimulated, you probably have an allergy and your like lymphatic system is stuffed up. Like that, which has nothing to do with like sexual intercourse, but those headaches can suck.
Yes.
And like can be like, I don't want to even go there because that gets triggered and then you're spending the next X amount of hours with a miserable headache.
Yeah. Oh, that's also a really good point. Like, what if you're allergic to something that you're using? Like, are you allergic to the lube? Are you allergic to the food product that you're using? Like, what are the options here? Because that's the thing. And then sometimes overstimulation can feel like pain, right? Like, it's too much too fast or too much, period. And, like, we need to edge around that too, right? Like, yeah, sometimes people's nerve endings are distributed very differently from person to person. And so like what works on one person might not work on you. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you're not normal. That just means you have a body.
Yeah. Yeah. And like self-exploration is a really great practice here. Is like there are so many toys and tools and things that you can do that you can try out on yourself to see if it's something that you like by yourself. If there's a product that actually like causes some swelling and you didn't realize that it was the product because things swell during sex. Like
Also true.
There's ways to explore this alone before you start bringing in partners. So then you can ask your partner, oh, hey, I want these type of products, or I don't want to be touched in these type of ways. That can help the pain not exist.
Yep, for sure.
Okay, one last one. Also, if you have any questions about sex therapy, all of the things that don't get talked about, write in, let us know. We'll do another Q&A episode on a sex topic. I think this is really important and stuff that people don't talk about.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's talk about sex all the time.
Now I have that song in my head. Okay. My partner has pain during sex. We've tried to troubleshoot it and make modifications, but I feel like I'm imposing with my needs on them, and that's a turnoff. Is there a good way for me to ask for my needs to get met without demanding stuff that's not working for them? Sex isn't easy anymore. I'm in my own head all the time. It feels like a lot of work to make it happen, and it's really coming between us.
I would do a lot of exploration around like what is their definition of sex and like what are the actual needs that aren't being met and what are you seeking when you are seeking out sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so like troubleshooting, I'd be really curious about what that means. But it is a thing like we open this up with, right? Like this is a important part of the human experience, and being able to find a way that feels good for you is important, and also for your partner, because hopefully you want what's good for your partner if that's what you're engaging in. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, so I think it's really important to look at what you're seeking. Like, what is the need? Is it a release of some kind? Is there a different way that release can be achieved that feels good, right? Like, something that I heard is that, like, all sexual acts should be, like, received and treated equally, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not all about just orgasm, right? Mm-hmm. It's about, like, all of the other things that go around with that, and, like, how is that a connection between you and the other person or people, right? So, like, how can we normalize that and see if that relaxes some of the shoulds and ideas that are attached to this, and would that change your relationship to this?
Yeah. I'm gonna guess too, I mean, this person sounds like they're very involved in care, mm-hmm. and that now this partner is in their head, and I'm guessing the partner that's struggling and having the pain is also in their head. Mm-hmm. And so finding ways to talk about it and come together and not like lash out insecurities at each other, because that's also like, this is heated
very,
and can be really common to like lash out, or you don't love me, or you don't need me, or you can't take care of me, and like the laundry list of things that come is really important not to project that on your partner, because both partners are really struggling through anything that comes up around this.
Yeah. Yes. There's a lot of meaning making that happens when it comes between partners. Mm-hmm. And so go to therapy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, have somebody there to kind of help pull things apart and slow the conversation down. If you're not able to do that at that point, like, have a grounded conversation, like set some time, set like an agreement of like, this is the safe word when I'm feeling too activated and I need a break talking about this. It doesn't have to be a problem that you're going to solve in a 15-minute conversation, right? Like, really sit down and ground and be connected and like state the intention. I want to be connected to you. I want to have this experience with you. How can we make this like feel good for both of us?
Yeah. And like listen without taking it personally, because I think which is difficult, and a great reason to have an informed therapist, because of that meaning making that you're happening. Like, a lot of old wounds are going to be more vulnerable. A lot of self-esteem stuff is going to be more vulnerable, especially if it's happening and sounds like for a while.
Yeah. And you're in a very vulnerable space when all of this is happening. Mm-hmm. So it cuts a little deeper sometimes. Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit of a sidestep, but I'm curious how you're seeing this with clients in monogamous relationships versus poly relationships. Like, what stuff is coming up? Like, if like a partner is, or a partnership is having pain during sex kind of come up and interrupt their connection with whatever's happening. Are you noticing anything different in couples who are only sexual with each other versus couples who have other sexual partners?
In terms of like meaning making for themselves? Yes and no. Like, some of these wounds kind of show up regardless of the context. Monogamous relationships, it definitely seems to get the like projection thing a little faster. But also, not to make the stereotype, but like communication in poly relationships sometimes is more open. And there are different things that can be said there. Again, it's not a complete picture of everybody.
Yeah.
But.
Yes. I feel like one of the beautiful things about poly, and I know we've said this probably a million times before, is that healthy, clear, direct communication without taking things personally is a really prioritized and taught and practiced in poly relationships. And I wonder if at some point we do an episode or some sort of workshop to kind of walk through how to do that in monogamous relationships also.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah. Great. Stay tuned. Well, thank you so much for joining us and answering the questions that came in. This is heavy.
It's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And we didn't even get into like when there actually is a medical condition going on, because that adds another layer of like, if somebody is sick or if somebody has an illness or an injury or something is happening, that adds a whole nother layer, but maybe that'll be part two.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for listening in. We are really curious about your experiences, your questions. Please email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on socials, YouTubes, the streamers, and please listen, rate, review, subscribe, all the things is super helpful. Cheers.
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. My Therapist Is Out is an Open Space Therapy Collective podcast. Our therapists are Renae Johnson, Kristen Crowe, Debbie White, Jenny Nigro, and Tara Friedman. Our podcast editing is done by Smash and Grab Studio. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so you can email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at My Therapist Is Out and Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.